Hi, Winville Falcons. Welcome to the 2021 Virtual Martin Luther King Jr. Assembly. Today, we're here to celebrate the inspiration, the life, and the legacy of Dr. King and the enormous impacts he made for social justice. Through Dr. King's eloquence, passion, and ability to unite people with his words, he fought for equality using nonviolent acts of civil disobedience. This year would have been Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s 92nd birthday, and his legacy lives in our hearts as we continue to fight for equality. The summer of 2020 was the beginning of new awakenings as youth behind the Black Lives Matter movement continued to rise up and use their voices to advocate for racial and social justice. It reminded us that Dr. King's work is not done, and perhaps the best way to honor him is to keep his memory in our minds as we continue to have these difficult conversations about race and discrimination in our society.
Now, to kick off our celebration of Dr. King, let's look back on some of the key moments in his march towards activism.
Today, we are honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
On January 15, 1929, Martin Luther King Jr. was born. He didn't know it at the time, but he would change the world.
In 1957, Dr. King was named chairman of what would become the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
A month later, he appeared on the cover of Time magazine. Time called the then 28-year-old Dr. King the man the desegregation movement was looking to. After the establishment of the previously mentioned SCLC and the bus boycotts, Dr. King was receiving national attention, including this cover.
On June 23rd, King and other civil rights leaders meet with President Dwight Eisenhower in Washington to discuss racial discrimination in the United States. After the meeting, they meet with press to answer questions.
On August 28th, King delivers his famous I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial as more than 200,000 demonstrators take part in the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom.
In the year 1964, King was awarded both Time magazine's Man of the Year award as well as the Nobel Peace Prize.
In 1965, King peacefully leads civil rights marchers from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery. On this journey, marchers were attacked and beaten by police frequently. The walk from Selma, Alabama to the state capital of Montgomery was a 54-mile walk where Dr. King also experienced many different acts of violence from many different white vigilante groups and local authorities. The march brought national attention to the struggles of Black voters and the desperate need for a Voting Rights Act.
On April 3, 1968, King returned to Memphis, Tennessee at an evening rally. He delivers his final and arguably most powerful speech, I've Been to the Mountaintop. The speech, which goes on to emphasize supporting fair practice in Black-owned businesses, relay the importance of the Good Samaritan, and preach the idea of the Promised Land, which humanity will one day arrive at. He, King, just may not be there.
Because of his peaceful deeds and actions, hatred and evil came for him. At age 39, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4, 1968. King once shared his dream for our world, and although he's no longer with us, his dream lives on in each and everyone who continues to stand up and aspire for greater change. And there are people working each and every day to make his dream a reality. Microaggression. A statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group, such as a racial or ethnic minority. The difference between microaggressions and explicit discrimination is that microaggressions tend to be more subtle and revolve around stereotypes. Although they may seem insignificant, microaggressions can have a long-lasting impact on the recipient. These actions or exchanges of dialogue can make minorities feel uncomfortable, belittled, and marginalized, especially when they occur on a regular basis. In order to reflect and make adjustments to our own behavior, let's see what microaggressions look and sound like around campus.
My tan almost makes me as dark as you. Your dad still lives with you? Can I touch your hair? You don't sound Black.
You don't act gay. It's just a phase. You don't look gay, trans, queer, LGBTQ.
You look oppressed with that thing on your head. What are you hiding in there? You would look so much better without it. Were you forced to wear it?
Oh, sorry, I got you guys mixed up. All Asians look the same. You're probably only good at school because you're Chinese. Don't eat my dog.
Do you celebrate Cinco de Mayo? Are you legal? Are your parents legal? Are you full Mexican?
You look so exotic. What are you? That's not our real ethnicity. Get over it, you got conquered.
Yes, he still lives with me. He's awesome, great, probably like the best dad ever. He's tight.
It's pretty hurtful. Like, I'm sorry that I'm not what you expect me. I was not aware that there was one right way to look gay or queer, whatever, because there's not.
I've heard the sentence, you're probably only good at math and school because you're Chinese. I've heard that so many times throughout my high school career, and every time I hear it, it's not a compliment. It delegitimizes all the hard work and time and effort that I put into things and condenses it all to because I'm Asian, because I'm Chinese. And it further pushes the model minority complex where Asians have to be better at academics in order to be deemed worthy and valuable to society.
Now that we're aware of what microaggressions look like in our own community, be sure to take some time to reflect on how you may unintentionally be marginalizing others. In addition, hold your peers accountable to do the same.
In his letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice."
In this statement, he emphasizes the importance of stepping outside our comfort of what is negative peace and instead engage in conversations that push the norm. And one of those necessary conversations from the civil rights era and our current society is privilege. In this next video, we'd like to break down what privilege means to different people and how it silently affects everyone in some way.
Before we dive into the subject of privilege, please keep in mind that this is not a video to call out any particular race or group of people, but simply a means to hopefully engage in deeper conversations. With this, we hope to open up some mindsets and talk about a topic that students in our Winville community can take something away from.
Some people are born into families where they have to walk miles just to get water. All I have to do is turn on a faucet. That's privilege.
If you have ever tried to change your speech, if you were embarrassed about your clothes or house, if you would never think twice about calling the police when trouble is...
I think privilege is when some people have some things and other people don't have things.
I feel privilege is something that you don't even really have control over.
I think it'd be silly for me to say I don't have a fair amount of privilege, considering like the country I live in and the job I get to do and the college I was allowed to go to.
I suppose being a white male will help me end up somewhere towards the front, but I'll take a few steps back from being gay.
I don't think I'll make it to the front. I think I'll maybe be in the middle. That's just the gut feeling I have.
If your parents work nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back. If you can show affection for your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward. If you were embarrassed about your clothes or house while growing up, take one step back. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical or mental illness or disability, take one step back. If you have ever been bullied or made fun of based on something you can't change, take one step back. If you get time off for your religious holidays, take one step forward. If you came from a supportive family environment, if you can see a doctor whenever you feel the need, if you are able to move through the world without fear of sexual assault. If you took out loans.
I think it felt kind of strange for everyone.
It's a hard thing to discuss or even reflect on.
It was very awkward. I think when you can represent it so visually like this and so immediately, it definitely takes on a new form.
Just looking back and seeing like a bunch of people behind you is not a good feeling.
It's like weird how you want to like hold on to explaining a certain privilege. Like, oh, but that's not actually me because like I had to work really hard for that. So it's weird to like take a step forward when you feel like you're taking a step forward with someone else, but you wear a lot of the baggage of like how those things were hard.
It was like more emotional than I thought it would be.
It reminded me of when they talk about slavery in high school and you feel like angry for a few days, but then you just realize like, this is how it is.
For me, it was kind of frustrating almost to look back and see how much further some people were behind me.
It's interesting being an Asian American because you're not really sure where you fall on the spectrum of privilege.
I know that for me, one of the reasons I ended up so far back was that there were questions around safety as an African American, as a woman, as a gay woman. There are just so many different ways that I don't feel safe.
I feel like I just learned to be grateful for what you have. You know, we're in such a huge society where it's always complaining about what you don't have.
I do think if you're not like aware of privilege, you should do this exercise, but it's more complicated.
What is privilege and how does it affect me? Socioeconomic status, race, gender and sexuality, location, education, and being able-bodied are all some of the factors that determine your privilege. It's not usually something you can control, as a lot of these factors are products of the world you were born into.
Take, for example, in history class, when learning about your ancestors, it was the whitewashed version of Black history that glossed over slavery and skipped over your culture. What very few students at Woodinville realize is that representation is a form of privilege. To see yourself and your culture accurately represented is in books, textbooks, and in the building itself is not something that everyone has.
Take another example of online school. You're in a breakout room and you're a bit frustrated that your partner for the prom has their camera off and isn't responding. But what you might not know is their life behind the screen. Perhaps they don't have reliable internet or a computer to use because their family can't afford to buy one just for school. Or they have younger siblings that they have to take care of. Or they don't have a safe space in their house to turn on their camera for Zoom.
A part of acknowledging your privilege is understanding that there is more to someone's life and their decisions than what meets the eye, and to respect others' personal boundaries. Understanding privilege requires empathy and an open mind. Recognizing your privilege isn't about making you feel guilty about what you do have, but rather it's a constant reminder that not everyone was born with the same advantages and rights as you. You have the responsibility to recognize your privilege and use your privilege to advocate for those around you.
Privilege exists in every space, and it takes difficult conversations to acknowledge it. I recently had a conversation with one of our podcast speakers, James Lehman, and he gave me a piece of wisdom that I believe is applicable to so many different situations, both in school and life in general. Don't let the potential discomfort of a conversation close off the opportunity to grow your perspective.
That mindset automatically clouds the discussion with hesitance, with fear and doubt, and leaves us with no room for learning different points of view. Oftentimes, we're presented with situations that make us feel as though we need to be defensive, or that we need to stand by our point of view, and right off the bat, we're discrediting the conversation that could potentially grow you as a person.
Privilege isn't a topic here to make you feel uncomfortable. It's a topic that shouldn't be political. It's a topic that discusses facts.
It's a topic that leaves room for conversations, for growth alongside your peers. It's a topic that allows you to become more aware of society and the impact that your privilege has on your life and on others. We challenge you to have these conversations and open your mindset to the world around you.
Next, we have a spoken word piece written and voiced by Youth Speaks. However, today it will be voiced by some of our own Woodinville students, including Maya Hariri, Sanvi Shetty, Ingrid Yan, and Zain Bethel. We hope you enjoy the tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. that we have in store for you today.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
We believe there are dreams hidden inside the minds of every young person.
Every student who has ever seen multicolored history on screens of all sizes.
Like every child from San Francisco to San Jose, Oakland.
We're the generation from a dream translated into reality.
We are the sons and daughters of a movement.
The children of the mountaintop.
The generation of a promised land who stand on the foundation of those who paid a price.
Fought a fight for our right to be free, so today
we take this moment to say thank you.
For those who dared to dream.
To Dr. King and all the unsung heroes who marched for peace.
It is in your footsteps we follow.
Your courage we mimic.
Your spirit we embody, so let today be a monument.
For your sacrifice.
We will never stop dreaming.
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 There are many ways to celebrate and commemorate Martin Luther King Jr. and the legacy he left behind. Martin Luther King Jr. used to say that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? To honor MLK Day, we suggest that you find a way to give back to your community. Martin Luther King Jr. valued community service and kindness, and there are many meaningful and COVID-friendly ways to live up to this. Websites such as volunteermatch.org and nationalservice.gov can help you find ways to give back to not only the community as a whole, but specifically the Black community, whose rights Martin Luther King Jr. fought for during his lifetime. Within WHS, there are also many other opportunities for community service. If volunteering for outside organizations is not possible for you, there are still other ways to show kindness and give back. During MLK Day, you can remember Martin Luther King Jr. by helping out a sibling or a parent. Reach out to a friend or family member in need of support. One of the best ways to remember Martin Luther King Jr. is to act upon his values and beliefs. By giving back, you will be doing just this.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was known for his wonderful and hugely inspiring speeches. His speeches show us what he believed in and what he stood up for. By listening to his speeches, we can learn from his own words the change that he wanted to bring about and the country he envisioned in which civil rights would be guaranteed to all. If you would like to listen to Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches, you can search them up on YouTube. If you would rather read than listen to the speeches, you can find written versions at drmartinlutherkingjr.com. Some of his most famous speeches include Our God is Marching On, I Have a Dream, his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, I've Been on a Mountaintop, and The Other America. As you listen to his speeches, recognize and understand the message that Martin Luther King Jr. is trying to send us. Listening to Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches is an amazing way to honor him and what he has done for our country, as we have the ability to relive important moments in his life.
Another way to learn about Martin Luther King Jr. and the ideas he stood up for is to read books and watch documentaries, as you can become more educated on the history of the civil rights movement and how the past carries to today. By reading these books and watching these documentaries, you'll be able to learn about Dr. King and the important history he left behind, as well as gain a better understanding about what is happening today. On the ASB Instagram page, we've provided many book recommendations, including 10 Steps to Non-Optical Allyship and Privilege, Power and Difference, a popular podcast series called Code Switch by NPR, and we encourage you to take advantage of all of these resources and use them to educate yourself on the past, present, and future of the civil rights history.
Finally, due to the current Black Lives Matter movement, we can see that it is crucial to continue having these discussions about race, privilege, and civil rights. These dialogues will allow us to reshape our opinions into more welcoming and diverse ones. This upcoming Monday, you can honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by sitting down with friends, family, and discussing the issues that Dr. King stood against, as well as the resulting change. Now I want to give one final thank you to everyone who came together to make this assembly and the leading up activities possible. Now let's continue working together to make Dr. King's dream a reality. Thank you.